all up and down the ballot. Will you re-emphasize why being everything from a local coroner, a local district attorney, the local sheriff's office is important for Black women to have a seat at the table?
Well, we know that all politics is indeed local. And so we must be invested in every race at that table, whether it's the mayor's race, whether it's a school board, whether it's an at-large position. We have to be there to make those decisions. I didn't know how important a coroner's election was until we realized how many Black men they were claiming died from other reasons than homicide. And so every election is important, and we must be at that table to make a difference. You can't make a difference if you're somewhere else. It wasn't until I went to law school that I understood the relationship between Martin Luther King and Thurgood Marshall. No matter how much we were in the streets organizing and protesting, it took somebody at that table to raise his hand and say, I move. And that's why it's important. We must be at that table.
Absolutely. Dr. Glover, as I hear you speak about making sure we're have a seat at the table, it makes me think, what do you think that women actually bring to the table, which is distinct? What is the wow factor for women and Black women in particular?
Well, as I said, we are the backbone of this democracy. Women have done it all in the past, the present, and will do it in the future. You can depend on women to stand up and tell it like it is. We bring truth to the room. So it's important that we bring truth to the political spectrum and that we go about the business of making our lives better for everybody, for the humans, for every human being. It's about making lives better, being honest, and improving the lot for all of us.
So, Dr. Glenda Glover, I mean, you really do know how to table set for us for this discussion, and I'm looking so forward to having a conversation with the elected officials who are joining us. And I want to re-emphasize that each and every one of them are members of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and it's just an honor to have our sorority sisters who've already stepped up and are seated at that table of influence. Dr. Glover, thank you for those inspiring words, and I will do my best to make sure that we get all around this topic. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And now it is my esteemed pleasure to welcome our very first elected official participants of the evening. We're going to give them all an opportunity to talk a little bit about their secret sauce when it comes to public service. And our very first elected official participant is the Honorable Nikema Williams, United States Congress, 5th District, State of Georgia. And I am so happy to again say hello to Congresswoman Nikema Williams, who has been a fierce advocate for social justice, women, and families throughout her political and professional career. She was elected as the freshman class president for the 117th Congress. As president, she organizes and advances the interest of her freshman Democratic colleagues to fulfill their oath to work for the people. She currently sits on the Financial Services Committee, where she is vice chair of the Subcommittee on Investigations and Oversight, and the Transportation and Infrastructure. Congresswoman Williams is also a member of the Select Committee on the Modernization of Congress. She has membership in several caucuses, including the Congressional Black Caucus, the Democratic Women's Caucus, Congressional Progressive Caucus, Voting Rights Caucus, LGBTQ+ Equality Caucus, and the HBCU Caucus, because she attended Talladega College and HBCU, where she was initiated into Chi chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. So Nikema, Congresswoman Nikema, the Honorable Congresswoman Nikema Williams, welcome to this conversation.
Thank you for having me, Star, and thank you, President Glover, Dr. Glover, for insisting that this conversation be held, because y'all, it is very important that us as sorors, us as women of Alpha Kappa Alpha are convening and leading in this space. I'm Congresswoman Nikema Williams, y'all, and I have the honor of a lifetime representing Georgia's 5th Congressional District, where I continue to build on the legacy of good trouble set by my friend, mentor, and predecessor, Congressman John Lewis. So tonight you're in for a treat because y'all diversifying leadership at every level is indeed a serious matter. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. And I'm going to just open the door to you to share with us, if you don't mind, what was your path to running for office and becoming a public servant? What was your motivation? And share with us your winning strategy.
So I think it's important when you think about running for office. So for all of my sorors, get your notepads out and get ready, because you're going to get some gems for everyone that is involved in this conversation tonight. But you always have to focus on your why. And that's always been my mission. My mission, my why, is to center the needs of those most marginalized. So y'all, I was raised by my grandparents in rural Alabama. I grew up in a home with no indoor plumbing and no running water. So I know what it's like to live on the margins of society and to make sure that I am bringing people along with me. Somebody looked out for me, and I'm determined to make sure that I bring people along with me. So I fight every day to ensure the promise of America is accessible for everyone, no matter your zip code, no matter your bank account. So I started as an advocate. I served in a role as vice president with Planned Parenthood Southeast for 10 years, fighting for reproductive freedom, and then later protecting the rights of domestic workers and care workers across the country with the National Domestic Workers Alliance. Many of my colleagues would say, even my husband, that Nikema is the Lorax. If someone needs speaking for, I am ready to speak for them, because I am here to give people a voice who have been unheard and unseen in our political process for far too long. We need more people stepping up to the table, which leads us to authenticity. I often say that I lead out loud and on purpose, because we need authentic candidates willing to stand firm in their truth, their positions, and it'll carry you along. Don't hide from what you believe in. Don't hide from who you are. There are people waiting to hear your voice at the table, because our lived experiences is what makes us valuable in this conversation. So my winning strategy has been authentic, has been leading from right where I am and bringing every one of my lived experiences with me along the way.
And sorry, Nikema, do you mentioned something about the why, but I want to ask about the wow. What was the wow? You know, the rule is you never want to enter any situation without thinking and knowing that you're the best person for that job. What was your wow?
So I will say I had a little lesson years ago from someone who told me to make my friends before I needed them. And so I collect people along the way. And my wow has been just the people along the process who have really helped me get here. So it wasn't just me making that decision that I wanted to run. There were people who were supporting me, who were cheering me on, who were pushing me and encouraging me to run. Now, don't get me wrong, I wanted to do it because I had worked in government and I had seen some of the people that we elected to represent us. And so I knew that coming from my HBCU, Talladega College, I was well prepared. My sorority sisters were lifting me up just like we're doing with you. So when you step up to office, don't be afraid to call upon us to push you and encourage you and support you along the way. But that wow, you have to have your network. You have to have your people to keep you going, because every day isn't easy, y'all. We're here to have a real conversation. We're amongst family. So I need to let you know that every day isn't going to be your best day. Every day isn't going to be exciting, but that's why you focus on your why, because that wow might let you down sometimes, Star. But if you focus on that why, you know why you are there, you know your purpose, and you keep going even on those toughest days when the naysayers are louder than your support system. So that's why I always focus on the why.
I 100% agree with you. And I'm glad that you really laser focused us on the why, because you were actually elected to fill the seat created by the death of Congressman John Lewis, your mentor, your friend, the lion for all practical purposes when it came to civil rights and all things involving Black people and marginalized people. At the time when you were serving as chair of the Democratic Party of Georgia. So I'm curious how you were selected to be the chair of the party, and how do you think your service as the party chair prepared you for a run for Congress?
So first of all, I still serve as the chair of the Democratic Party of Georgia. I wear multiple hats in this process, and I'm the first Black woman to ever hold this position. So we need to level set and know that there are a lot of people who didn't think it was time for Georgia to have a Black woman leading us. There are people who told me I was too young, didn't have enough money, didn't have a large enough network, and frankly wasn't had too much estrogen and too much melanin. So there are people who thought that I needed to wait my turn and let other people step up because we're in the deep South. But I also had those people who have been with me every step of the way. And I built those connections, authentic relationships where there are people who, again, supported me in this journey. And my work in coming through as an advocate through the Democratic Party, what had me well prepared for the moment to step up to run for Congress. I didn't realize that I was going to be going to Congress last year. I just ran a very successful campaign for state Senate. I was a state senator before I was elected to Congress and had just won my reelection by about 76%, but who's counting, in June. And then in July, the death of Congressman John Lewis opened up an opportunity for me to serve on a higher level. And so I stepped up, I entered my name out of 132 candidates, 132 candidates, and the list was narrowed down to 5 finalists, and I received 91% of the vote from the Democratic Party Executive Committee to be the Democratic nominee. And just today was the day that all of the numbers were officially called in my race. I remember sharing on social media earlier today that in my election, November of last year, I got 85.1% of the vote. And I am joining 7 other members of Alpha Kappa Alpha serving in the United States Congress. So it has been a journey. And I often tell people, just get ready. My grandma taught me, if you stay ready, you'll be ready. So I need the ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha to stay ready, because you never know when the moment is going to come. You oftentimes don't choose the moment chooses you. And so you just have to be ready.
That is wonderful. I was actually going to ask you as I let you go, what would be your one piece of advice? And you just gave it to me. Stay ready.
Stay ready.
Because if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Thank you so very much, Congresswoman, for joining us. Thank you for really just stepping in and fulfilling your destiny. Before I let you go, I will ask you, what do you know now that you wish you knew before when you got into public service?
Well, I will say it is different on every level, Star. And being in Congress, I've realized that I have to relinquish my calendar to other people. And it is very difficult for me, someone who is a busybody, who likes to be in control of everything, to allow other people to have control over aspects of your life. I'm slowly learning, y'all. So it's a work in progress. So bear with me.
Oh, I think you're doing just fine. And we're all so very proud. I remember when they first announced that it was you who were getting the nod, I was thrilled beyond belief. And so thank you very much for joining us. And I'm sure the Soars are just as thrilled as I am to have you in that Congress. And congratulations on being the president of your class, but that's not new to you, not in the least bit. Thank you, Sora Nakima. I am so excited to be able to introduce the remainder of our participating elected officials at this time. We have such an array of sorors, sisters, and powerful public servants. The Honorable Juliana Stratton, Lieutenant Governor of the state of Illinois. The Honorable Rochelle Robinson, Mayor of the city of Douglasville and state of Georgia. The Honorable Terry Caldwell Johnson, member of the Des Moines Public School Board, state of Iowa, and the Honorable Denise Langford Morris, judge of the 6th Judicial District, Oakland County, Michigan. But I will give these sisters their due as I ask them individually to just chat with me a moment. Let me start with my Lieutenant Governor, and oh yeah, I love saying that. The Honorable Juliana Stratton currently serves as the 48th Lieutenant Governor of the state of Illinois, an office to which she was elected in 2019. In this role, her portfolio includes leading the Justice, Equity, and Opportunity Initiative and chairing the Illinois Council on Women and Girls, the Governor's Rural Affairs Council, the Military Economic Development Council, and the Illinois River Coordinating Council. She previously served as a Democratic member of the Illinois House of Representatives from 2017 to 2019. She is the first African-American woman to become lieutenant governor in the state of Illinois. She often cites her hobby of running marathons and triathlons as giving her the discipline needed for the rigors of campaigning. And trust me, the other sisters here in Chicago, we just envy the fact that she can do that. Sora Juliana earned a bachelor's degree, a bachelor's of science from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, and a Juris Doctorate from DePaul University. She is a member of the Chi Chi Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And Lieutenant Governor, it's a pleasure to see you all over again.
Good to see you, Sora Star, as well.
So I guess I'm going to start with you with the exact same thing. Lieutenant Governor, what was your path to running for office and becoming a public servant? How'd you get here?
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to join you for this fantastic conversation. I certainly want to acknowledge our international president of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Dr. Glenda Glover, as well as all of the esteemed sorors and public servants on tonight's panel. Thank you for your service and your wisdom and your sisterhood. And all of you who are joining tonight because you are interested in running for office, you are exactly where you are supposed to be. I am Juliana Stratton. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm proud to serve as the 48th Lieutenant Governor of the state of Illinois. As was mentioned in my introduction, I'm the first Black Lieutenant Governor of our great state. I'm the first Black woman to serve as a constitutional officer in our state. And what I think is sort of when I think about my path has really been just saying yes. You know, I started my path to elected office and to being Lieutenant Governor, serving in my first elected office, which was a local school council representative at a high school, a public high school. And I did that because I was really interested in promoting public school education. It was a high school that I attended. I had daughters attending that school, and I wanted to be involved. And I cared about education like all of you do. We all know how important education is. And I thought this was a way to give my voice to that work. I then ran for state representative in 2016. And that really happened because I was sitting at home watching the news, and the person that was representing me had made a decision to cut services to seniors, vulnerable seniors, and to children by cutting to families child care assistance programs. And I was sitting there saying, somebody should run against him because I care about our young people and I care about our seniors. And it was unconscionable to me that this person who was supposed to be representing our community would make that cut. And so over time, I realized that person was me when I said somebody should run against him. And I was successful in running for state representative. And then after 7 months serving as state representative, our now governor, J.B. Pritzker, asked me to be his running mate. And all along the way, I think the key is I had to say yes. I don't know how many of you have seen the studies, but when men are asked to run for office, they need to be asked once and they say yes. And that's all the way going up to president. Yes, I can do it. Women need to be asked closer to 8 to 9 times to be able to say yes. We have all sorts of reasons why we say no. And I hope tonight's conversation will dig into the reasons why those of you who are participating will really give some real thought to saying yes, because we need your voices, we need your background and expertise, we need your wisdom to be in the spaces where decisions are being made.
Oh, Lieutenant Governor, I just love that you're giving us some gems here and everybody's taking notes. Just say yes. And that statistic that you talked about, how many times it takes for a woman to say yes, that is across all industries. When it comes time for promotions, when it comes time to take on other projects, men tend to think that they are masters of the universe, they can do anything, rocket ships, coal mining, whatever the heck you give it, they want to be able to do it. But women, we can do it also. And what you have just listed for us is to just say yes. I can't wait to continue this conversation when we bring in the remaining members of our group. And speaking of which, I would like to introduce at this time the Honorable Rochelle Robinson, Mayor of the City of Douglasville, the state of Georgia. Mayor Robinson was elected in 2015 as the first woman mayor of Douglasville, Georgia, a suburb of Atlanta. As mayor, she moderates all of the council committee meetings and the city council meetings. Mayor Robinson served on the Douglasville City Council from 2002 to 2007, and she continues to serve on many boards and commissions in Douglasville, as well as Metro Atlanta. She is a veteran of the United States Army, and I say on behalf of a grateful nation, thank you for your service. In addition to her mayoral duties, Sora Robinson and her husband have 3 children, all in their teens. An ordained minister, she is co-pastor of a church with her husband in nearby Rex, Georgia. She's a proud member of Sigma Omega Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And the Honorable Mayor Rochelle Robinson, it's a pleasure for me to have a chat with you today.
Oh, thank you so much, Sora Star. This is such an awesome opportunity and such a blessing for me to be here. I want to thank our international president, Dr. Glenda Glover. Madam Supreme is just so warm. You know, being a preacher, I feel like every time I speak with her, I feel like I'm in church and we need to just pass the plate. But I'm sitting in the amen corner here tonight with all of these beautiful, esteemed sorors who God has really blessed and put in position for such a time as this. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share this evening.
Absolutely. And so, Rochelle, I'm going to ask you that same table setting question. I'd love for you to share with us your path to running for office and becoming a public servant. And also, what was your motivation and winning strategy?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, Sora Star. You know, I'm just an ordinary person that God has used to do extraordinary things because, like Deborah, I just yield to God and what he wants to do in my life. And he strategically puts people in my life to kind of yield and guide me. And so saying yes, as like our Lieutenant Governor has said, is something that deep in my spirit, when God confirms with me, I just say yes and go. So my motivation really is my children and family. I feel a responsibility that I'm standing on Sora Rosa Parks' shoulders and Sora Coretta Scott King and all of those beautiful women, Fannie Lou Hamer, the ones who've gone before me, that I have to do what God has called me to do, and that's be an advocate in the community. And so my path really started with my mother. I'm a preacher, so I'm just going to tell you 3 points, but I'm not going to keep the sermon long. Those 3 points are volunteerism, equal access, and relationships. And so my mother, when I was young, probably 9 or 10, had me marching on the Board of Education. And I didn't understand why, because she said, you know, it was equality in books. And I said, our school has books and we're fine. But she said, it's not about your school, it's about the school down the street. If they're not have equal equality and access to books that are new and not used, then all of us, when one hurts, all of us hurt. And so that's my motivation, is to have equality across the board. So volunteerism is what started me on my path in politics 20 years ago in Douglasville, just helping out in the community, being the PTA president for my kids' school, just helping to give any time that I was asked to do that. And then my motivation for equal access is we lived in a part of the community that's a nice area, but when you go across the tracks, it looked a little different. And I didn't like that. I'm from Ohio, and being in Georgia now 26 years. When I first moved here with my husband, there was the same street that ran through town and was in a minority community. It looked different from when you went downtown until you went into the more expensive homes. And if we're all paying taxes, we all need to look the same in Douglasville. And that's what motivated me to run for mayor, is not just to have a local government, as Madam Supreme has said, it all starts locally. We pull your taxes out. And I don't care if your tax dollars are $200 or $2,000. Everyone needs to have the same access and ability to services because you pay your money. And the last thing is relationships, really to build relationships that are lasting and that will make a difference in the world and in the community. And you said my children are teenagers, but I'm going to tell you that the bio is old. I have a 20-year-old, 22, and the boy get ready to be 23. Pray my strength. So, our daughter just is a legacy baby at Kennesaw State University. So very happy to have Olivia in the sorority, and Ann is at Savannah State. the 20-year-old. So we're looking for her to come in soon. And our son is in college and in the Firefighters Academy. So my husband and I are just blessed to serve the community, whether it be in the church or in the community and politics. I hope I answered the question. I'm just talking away.
Oh, no, absolutely. And I can tell because as we do this conversation, I follow along with what the soars in the audience are saying, the general public, and people are motivated for completely different reasons. And your motivation really came out of a desire to be a public servant and give equal access to everybody, regardless of status. And so as you see, I am writing complete notes so I can keep up, so that we can share them with the women who are watching this, because as Dr. Glover says, we want to run up and down that ballot. Thank you so very much. I can't wait for you to join in with the remainder of the group. I am now going to introduce the Honorable Terry Caldwell Johnson, who's a member of the Des Moines Public School Board in the state of Iowa. Terry was first elected to the post in 2016 and recently won re-election to her second term earlier this month, as I understand. Terry Caldwell Johnson also serves as the CEO of Oak Ridge Neighborhood and Oak Ridge Neighborhood Services, a housing and human services nonprofit agency located in Des Moines. Active in the community, Terry has served on several nonprofit boards, including the University of Kansas College of Liberal Arts and Sciences Advisory Board, the Mid-Iowa Health Foundation, the Greater Des Moines Community Foundation, Planned Parenthood of the Heartland, Spelman College Museum Board, and the Directors Council. She holds a BA in English from Spelman College and an MPA from the University of Kansas in Lawrence, Kansas. She's also completed postgraduate studies at Bucknell University in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. Initiated at Kappa Omega chapter in Atlanta, Terry is a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated also. And I am so happy to meet you, Terry, today to share with us your path to running for office and becoming a public servant. I've been making my notes on what everybody is teaching us today. Let me see what you've got to add to the mix. Go ahead, Terry.
Well, first of all, Star, it is a thrill to be even sharing the screen with you today. I have admired you from afar for many, many years. So thank you for allowing us the opportunity. And to our international president, Glenda Glover, I have to tell you that when I got the phone call a week or so ago, I was actually ecstatic that you would invite me to participate with these esteemed stars today. So thank you so much. So I have to tell you that my path to elected leadership really started with my father, who was the first African-American elected mayor of my hometown, which is Salina, Kansas. And he told me a long time ago that there's something that goes like this. There's nothing like presence in the room. And presence in the room is important, but a seat at the table is even more important. And so I chose to run for school board because of an incident that was happening with the neighborhood school immediately across the street from the Oak Ridge organization, where I serve as president and CEO. Oak Ridge is a housing and human services organization. And about 8 years ago, there was a decision made by the school board to close our neighborhood school. And I couldn't understand why they would even think about that, when over 20% of the individuals that live in the Oak Ridge neighborhood, which is comprised of about 1,200 individuals, are children that are elementary school aged. And so I decided I needed to learn more, and I started doing my homework. And ladies, what I found is something that left me literally speechless. In the Oak Ridge neighborhood, our children were being bused to 17 different elementary schools in our community, which means that closing our school because of low enrollment was really attributed to a system issue that really needed to be corrected. And so, as with anybody, I decided that I wasn't going to stand by the sidelines. I was going to get busy. I filed my papers. I ran for one of 2 open seats on the school board, and I won, and the rest of the story is history. The Edmonds Elementary School, which is our neighborhood school, was not closed. Instead, the district made a decision to use $10.25 million to build a brand new school in the neighborhood across the street from our housing project. And beyond that, I'm actually serving Sora Star in my 5th term. I was just recently elected to my 5th term on the Des Moines School Board. And I'm going to share with you a few things about my winning strategy. Being prepared and doing your homework. So critically important for anybody who wants to stand up and run for elected office. Know what you're getting into. Another winning strategy for me was being able to be a person that could stand in the gap and to be the voice for people that didn't have one. And then my following strategy really was about speaking truth to power, which includes holding people who are in elected office and appointed office accountable for the decisions they're making and stepping up to really be a part of the solution and not just pointing fingers about either what is or isn't happening, but really being a part of the solution. I think for me, bottom line really goes to that lesson I learned from my father. There's nothing like presence in the room.
And Terry, I just love that you saw a niche, you saw a hole that needed to be filled, and you filling that hole actually impacted on young people's lives, because an elementary school education is the foundation for everything that a child is going to do. And you stepping into that gap to help those families really will impact on a young person's life for the rest of their lives. So that is a prime example of how just one person's election impacts the community itself. And so I love that you shared that part of your story with you, and I look forward to hearing more as we go on with the evening. Our final elected official who is joining us for this esteemed panel is the Honorable Denise Langford Morris, Judge of the 6th Judicial District, Judicial Circuit, Oakland County, Michigan. So Judge Langford Morris is a graduate of Wayne State University, undergraduate and graduate school, and the University of Detroit Law School. She has served on the circuit court since 1992, and she is the first African-American jurist to sit on that court. Bravo, Soror. Prior to being elected to the bench, Judge Langford Morris served as an assistant U.S. attorney in the civil division, an assistant Oakland County prosecutor, and a trial attorney in private practice, specializing in insurance defense and general practice in numerous areas of the law. She worked for the Michigan Department of Social Services as a protective service worker, and while attending law school, Judge Langford Morris, she is a former member of the University of Detroit Mercy Board of Trustees, and she presently serves on the Dean's Advisory Board at the law school. She is a fairly new SORA, as she pointed out to me, initiated in 2018, and is a proud member of the Pi Tau Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Judge, it's never too late to be a soror, and it's never too late for run for public office. But you've been doing that a long, long time. Tell us what your path to public service was and your winning strategy.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for such a wonderful introduction, Sora Star. I too have followed you for so many years, and this is an honor and a privilege to be here with you this evening and all these distinguished panelists. But I have to thank Madam Supreme, Dr. President Glenda Glover, our international president, for calling me. I almost passed out when I got the call from Madam Supreme. I really am so humbled and honored to be here this evening. And yes, I have served a long, long time. My original motivation was my mom, because sharing what you learn from your family is important. And my mother set the pace. She never ran for office, and she was from the sticks in Alabama. But let me tell you something. When I was a small child, she took me to work on the polls for Congresswoman Barbara Collins, Coleman Young, the mayor in the city of Detroit. She took me to the schools. She also made sure that the Women's Now organization, I went to the meetings at the Y with her. Irma Henderson, Conference of Concerned Women, who was the first Black woman president of the Detroit City Council. I met her and became a member. And then last but not least, she took me to march with Dr. Martin Luther King when he came to Detroit. And so I watched her, and I watched her give back to the community. And that's what generated the interest in me to want to engage in public service. So all the jobs that I've had that you highlighted, and everywhere I went, I would see that there was a need to do more, to give back to the community. And it came from my mother. She always taught me to be in touch with your friends. And if you see someone that needs help, help them. So as a young assistant prosecuting attorney in Oakland County, which, let me set the stage, Oakland County is just outside of where Detroit is. It's the county north. It's the wealthiest county in the state of Michigan. And so it was very Republican and it was very white. And I saw so many Black men, just like we watch television and we see people all across the country. And we know what's going on in Georgia right now with Ahmaud Arbery. We have the problem of people that are not getting fairness in the court system. And I saw it as a young assistant prosecutor, and I, along with several of my colleagues, decided to form the D. Augustus Straker Bar Association. And that bar association had one goal, was to finally get an African-American judge on the Oakland County Circuit bench. Now, I never thought it would be me, because people had spent $750,000 to get a position on that bench. Like I said, it's a very wealthy county. And I never dreamed that I would have that opportunity. But we worked hard and we ensured that someone would be selected. I was the last of 28 people to apply for the initial appointment. And then I've run for election in that county 5 times and been successful. And so it really is the motivation where I look back at what my mother taught me. When I saw her have a fundraiser at our home in 1971 for her brother-in-law that ran for Congress in Georgia. In Albany, Georgia, Thomas Chapman ran for Congress, first Black man after Reconstruction. And so I watched her send the money to her sister in Albany, Georgia for her husband. And so it's that kind of motivation and strategy that encourages me to give back and mentor so many young women that I hope one day will have the opportunity to serve on the Michigan Supreme Court. You see, we've never had a Black woman on the Michigan Supreme Court in the history of Michigan. We've had 5 Black men, but never a Black woman. And I was the first nominated by a party to run in 2010. I ran statewide for the Michigan Supreme Court. I didn't win, but that's not the point. I went for it. And I hope that all of our SOARs that are watching tonight will learn and gain that you have to go for it. We are, as Madam Supreme stated, you know, it's all about being there in the moment and not saying no. Say yes, and you've heard it from all these great panelists. So, you know, I am a lawyer and I'm a judge, and we lawyers can talk. And so I could go on and on and on.
I love it. I love it.
But it really is an honor to be here.
Thank you so much, Judge. I really do appreciate it. And I have to laugh when you said, you know, I'm a lawyer. All I could do was hear Saturday Night Live being me for the last 25 years. And yes, you are a lawyer, but you are one heck of a judge. And to quote one of the SOARs who is watching this evening, who is sending messages in the chat, she said, quote, SOARs are so much the bomb. We are certainly the bomb, as the young SOARs might say. You all just have brought it to the table here. And I'm glad to have you all. And so I'm going to ask the producers to pull everybody up, because this is the time for me to ask some general questions. And I've sort of put them into some categories. First, the area of purpose, then the area of support, then that important area of money, and the last area, what are some practical solutions? And so let me just start with any of you who will want to pipe in on this. What are some of the questions that you need to ask if you're thinking about running for public office? And I'm going to ask everybody to unmute themselves. So Rochelle, Mayor Robinson, would you start with that? What are some of the questions you think people need to ask themselves if they're thinking about running?
Thank you so much, Source Star. They need to really ask themselves, as one of the sources have already said, and maybe have been Congresswoman Nikita, that your why. You need to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is this about selfish gain, or is this something for the greater good? And I know I'm not trying to be, falsely humble, but really you need to understand why you're doing something, and then count up the cost. When you decide to run, you need to understand, as Sor Johnson has said with the school board, what is the job entailing? Can you do it? And you don't have to know how to do everything, but do you have the time? You take an assessment of your family, of your community, and your resources. And resources, not just financial resources, but your intellectual resource, as well as your time, your family's time, taking time away, because being an elected position, really, as one of the sorors said, your time is not your own. Your calendar is always being filled, and you cannot be in every room, but people want you to be in every room. So those are some of the things that I would say that you really need to take an assessment, and why you're doing it, to look inside of yourself to see if you're meeting a need, and not just something that's selfish and you want to walk on the red carpet, because that red carpet is nice, but with the pink carpet. But you need
the pink carpet is very, very nice, but those lights can get hot if you really don't have the right motivation.
Yes.
And actually, Terry Caldwell Johnson, I'm going to ask you about this whole concept of an elevator pitch. Why somebody is running. In pretty much everything you do, you only have a few minutes to introduce yourself to a situation. And the elevator pitch is this whole concept of, in a nutshell, tell me about yourself. Do you think it's important to have an elevator pitch of why you're running, since we've all been going along that theme this evening, to tell people what you stand for and why you happen to be the best candidate?
I think anybody on this stage would agree that an elevator speech is the very first thing that you need to develop. It not only goes to your personal why, but it allows you to be much more articulate when you're beginning to talk about people, not only about your why, but also why you. I can remember when I ran the first time, I came up with 3 things: quality, accountability, and results. And those are the same things I have used in every single campaign. And people know me for that. They know I'm about quality schools. They know I'm about accountability for the decisions that we make. And they know that I'm about results for all children. And that resonates with people. And they walk up to you and they say, oh, you're the one. Quality, accountability, results. So having that elevator speech is so important.
I think that's so interesting that people now know you for what some people might consider to be a slogan, but it really speaks to who you are, your authenticity and your integrity. What about you, Lieutenant Governor? What about this whole concept of having that elevator speech down?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that because I absolutely believe that it's important that you can tell who you are, what your values are, what you are about, and what you want to do very quickly. But I also want to encourage all of those who are listening into this conversation and joining us tonight that I often like to think about it as, how do you tell your story? What is the experience or the background that you have had that will make a wonderful public servant where you can really contribute something? I had a woman at a panel that I was serving on once say, I have a 4-year-old and I'm not sure about running for office. is this the right time? And I said, we need moms of 4-year-olds to run for office, because who better to make childcare policy? Who better to think about early childhood education than a mom of a 4-year-old? So in addition to your elevator pitch, what about your story? Who are you? Many people in Illinois know that I my mom, Velma Wiggins, died of Alzheimer's disease in 2016. I was her primary caregiver. Being a caregiver, as many of you on this line know, it was the greatest honor of my life. It was also one of the greatest challenges of my life. It was very hard. And what I realized in being a caregiver is that there are not a lot of supports for caregivers to be able to support you in going through something that is very, very difficult. And so when I thought about my story, I knew I could tap into what so many other people are experiencing. I was a caregiver and a mom of children. And then, so that meant I was in that sandwich generation. Well, when I tell my story of being in that sandwich generation, there are others all around the state who said, you know what, I know what that's like. So I think that all of us have a story to tell. All of us have experienced different things in our lives that other people will say, because you have that experience, I think you're going to do a great job in developing policy in those areas.
Absolutely. And what it also does, when you share your story, you establish commonality and relationship with others who have a similar story. And don't be afraid to put yourself out there. One thing that I have picked up on all of you who have spoken today is you were uniquely prepared for the job that you ran for. And I believe very strongly when preparation meets opportunity, that's when it's your time to strike. And Judge Denise, specifically when it came to you, there had not been a Black woman in that particular area of the law. What did you do to distinguish yourself as a candidate that allowed you to win in a predominantly white area, a predominantly white community? This is some of the topics that I am seeing along the chat feed that people are discussing. Because we live in such a diverse environment, I don't want us to all think we can only win in a Black neighborhood or in a Black community. So Judge, I'm gonna ask you to take on that one.
Well, thank you. It wasn't easy. And I'll say that it's a little bit different running for judge than it is for a partisan position or some of the other positions that my colleagues are in, because judges do not have the ability to promise anything other than fairness, and that they will listen well, and they will be of strong integrity. And so it's a little bit more difficult because you can't go in talking about the laws you're going to change, because judges don't make law. We have to follow the law whether we like it or not. And sometimes our rulings are not those that we are happy with, but that's what the law is. But if we were going to make law, then we would run for the legislature, like Congresswoman Nakiba. So we do have people that run for those positions, but as judges, our elevator pitch is a little bit different because we're trying to make ourselves known throughout the entire community. We're not nominated by a particular party, at least at the countywide level, where I ran 5 times and won. We're never nominated by a party. So you are presenting yourself throughout the entire community. You're going to Republican functions, Democrat functions. You're talking about fairness and how important it is that you will listen and you will allow an opportunity to be heard in your courtroom. You want fairness and justice for all. And when people come in a courtroom, you don't know whether they have an R or a D or an I on their chest. That's not something that's divulged. And so you're walking in and you're trying to get the attention of whoever's in the room. Now, for me, that hasn't been real hard because I'm 5'11", 6'2" with my heels on. And so when I walk in, you're generally going to be seen. And so then it's a matter of getting their attention with what comes out of your mouth. So for example, I've made up things like, well, I'll be the tallest candidate on the ballot with the longest name. Denise Langford Morris, the most varied experience. And if you vote for me, I can get the job done. And so there are things that you will come up with that are deemed the elevator pitch, but you really weren't so focused on that as you were fairness and justice and being a person with strong integrity, because it's all about integrity, integrity, integrity as a judge.
And Judge, I really do appreciate you pointing out the difference, because we want the sorors and assembled guests to know that no matter which office you're running for, there's some basic foundational things that don't change. Authenticity and integrity does not change, no matter what it is that you are running for. And when you can convey that within your story, that's going to put you ahead of the pack right out of the box. So I really do appreciate you making that distinction. I want to move to the area that I call support. I'll ask Mayor Robinson this question to start us out. How important is it to have family support when you're going to run for office? Because for all practical purposes, they're right out there with you. And if they're not ready for what's about to come, it can be very problematic. So, Mayor, will you take on that one for me?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, Sora Star. Let me tell you, if I did not have my husband to support me, first of all, and our children, there's no way I could have done it. You know, ran for city council, for mayor. I've been appointed to several positions. The family support is paramount, because you can want to be superwoman all you want to with the S on your chest, but when you come home, you need to be able to relax and be able to unwind and talk to someone who really knows who you are. You don't have to have my elevator speech was experience, compassion, and integrity, but I don't have to say all that to my husband because he knows me. My kids know me. And so that support system is great, not only emotional support and physical support of your family, but support in the community. When I ran for mayor the first time, I lost in 2011 with less than 100 votes. But the NPHC was so very supportive of me. Before I could get to my campaign headquarters, the Omegas were out there with their gold boots on, barking, knocking on doors. The sorors were there answering phone calls, doing voting registration. The Deltas came out and marched with me, the Zetas, Alphas, Kappas picking up paper on the street. It was such a blessing to see people that we all put all of our colors together and came together to support their candidate. Mm-hmm. And so I believe, because we had that trial run, because there had never been a woman or an African-American, any minority, to run for mayor since 1875 in the city of Douglasville. Good so Lord. For me to be able to run and win that race was because of the support of the community.
Did you say 1875?
1875. I'm the first woman, the first Black to be in that position since 1875. It's never been. And my second run for mayor, I didn't have any opposition in 2019. They said that's never been done before. That you ran, you put your name on the ticket.
That's some Black girl magic for you right
there. Amen. That's Jesus. But all of that to say, that support system is great. Spiritual support, your support of your family, and the support of your community, whichever that community is. Mine is NPHC, the church, and Rotary Club, and they all came out and helped.
Wonderful. Sora Terry, the family support, I know this is something that you want to weigh in on.
I do. I so appreciate your comments on this, Sarah Rochelle. What I would offer here is two things about family. My immediate family was critically important, as Sarah Rochelle has indicated. Having her husband's support was important. And, you know, my husband encouraged me. He was like, If not you, who, and if not now, when? And he said, go get this done, girl. So I really appreciated his support. But you know what? My children were my biggest campaigners. They got their friends, their families. I mean, they created this incredible opportunity for me to be exposed to people that I may not have known who were their friends. And so that was another important part of my support. But the other family I'm going to tell you about that sometimes we underestimate is our work family. So I'm a nonprofit president and CEO, and I knew it was critically important for my board to support me in this run, because being an elected official could have some implications for my organization. If for whatever reason I didn't make the right decision, or I came up on the side of a wrong decision, that could certainly impact our organization, our fundraising, all of those things. So one of the first individuals or entities that I asked after I got the support of my husband was the board of directors in the Oak Ridge organization. And they stepped up and they said, absolutely, this will not only support the work that we're doing as an organization, but will increase our profile. And if there are times when it appears that the interests of the organization are being compromised, we'll let you know that. But for now, we're supporting you. So really, really lean on your work family as well, and make sure you get their endorsement and their support, because at the end of the day, they're paying the checks and you're not in the office.
Wonderful information and very good pieces of advice. I've heard because we're SOARs, members of the Divine Nine are great resources. Our church communities are great resources. Our work families are great resources. And listen, check out your neighbor. Unless your neighbor's crazy, if your neighbor won't support you, then you might need to ask yourself something. You need to be able to pull in all of the community support you can. Let me move to that ever critical area, money. I've seen a number of questions come over the chat. I guess anybody can weigh in. How much money do you need to run, or is it what the market will bear? Judge, why don't you take this, since we talked integrity right there?
Yes, absolutely. I can share a couple of things, quick stories. First of all, I wasn't born rich. I'm a proud product of the Detroit public schools. My father worked at the factory as a tool and die maker. He made good money, but I wasn't born rich. So I didn't have the trust fund that some of my colleagues received when they turned 21. So I had to get out there and figure it out. So I hired a campaign manager who was excellent, Velva Clark. And she went to work in the community. And not only that, as judges, you can't ask for money. So you have to have a committee, and it's the committee that asks. So I had no clue as to how to even formulate the committee. And so I said, well, what can I do? I've got to get this job. I've got to keep this job. And so I learned to call around everybody that I could think of that I had ever come in contact with. And I would say, I need your help. I need you to work on my committee. And they said, well, what do you need? And I said, well, I need you to get on the committee and figure it out, because I could not ask for them to actually give me the money. And so that's what I had to do. And that was really, really important. But people spent $3.5 million of dark money. The Citizens versus United case allows people to give money without revealing their identity. And that is a major problem. And that's hurting many races across the country, and judicial races in particular at the statewide level. So trying to raise money can be very, very difficult. And people, as I indicated, one of my colleagues spent $750,000 out of her own purse to try to win a countywide race, and she won. But we don't have that kind of money. So we have to work harder. We have to go door to door. We have to get throughout the community. In a 1.2 million person population wise in my county, it's hard to do. because commercials are very, very expensive.
TV time is extremely expensive.
Absolutely.
And it's almost as if, even in this social media environment, without having that external media in the traditional broadcast areas, you really are behind the eight ball. And financially, that can be an impediment for a lot of people. One of the gems that you just dropped is something that I know full well. Having a good campaign fundraising chairperson is like the cornerstone of whatever it is you're going to do. If you're running in a local office and you only need $25,000, you're still going to need a good campaign chairperson to help you raise that $25,000. Or statewide office where you're going to need a couple of million in some of these states in order to really mount an effective campaign. Having someone who is dedicated to fundraising, and that is not an easy job. It's something that I have enjoyed doing over the years. And most of my friends, they know when I call, I'm calling to ask you for money for something that I believe in. How did you, Terry, raise money? The judge talked to us about a campaign chairperson. Are there any additional things that you would add?
Well, a great committee obviously is a game changer. Identifying people who not only have the ability to write the checks themselves, but also have a network of individuals that they can reach out to that can also write the checks. I always tell people no check and no donation is too small. And if you even go back to the philosophy of Barack Obama, it was little money. It wasn't all big money. It was little money, time and time and time again, those reoccurring gifts, those monthly gifts. So, having a really good committee, but I also think it's really important for you to be the candidate and let the committee do their work, because as the candidate, you cannot do everything. So having a really good committee and allowing them to do their work so that you can be the candidate and out there on the stump really is a game changer for anybody who wants to run for office.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Lieutenant Governor.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback off of what was just stated, because we are talking about fundraising chairs and campaign managers, and I know that this particular forum is about encouraging women to run for office, but we need great people behind the scenes helping these candidates to be successful. And we do not have enough Black women in these positions as campaign managers, as fundraising chairs, working on these committees. And so as you are determining whether or not you want to step up and run for office, one of the things that you can do is you can get involved and make sure that you serve on some of these committees, see how it works, and really be a part of this process. Because I know that when we're looking for people to join our campaigns, it is not easy to find other Black women to join our campaigns. You have so much expertise. Many of you are in finance, you're working in these areas, and it would be wonderful to have you join some of these committees to help those who are running for office to be successful.
Yes, and Lieutenant Governor, I know from working in television all these years, having great producers is the key to being a good talent. And being a good candidate, you clearly have to have a committee of people behind you that knows how the sausage is made. And I think it's very important what you have just pointed out. And I'll move to something that's practical as we move along our agenda. And actually, I'm going to start with you again, Lieutenant Governor, because I think this is something that you do know, being that Illinois can be a little down and dirty in terms of politics, and a lot of people, that scares them off. A lot of people get afraid of any of the negativity that can come with politics. Is negative campaigning inevitable? And is there a way to not be in the mud? And I'll start with you on this, and I'll ask everybody to talk to us a little bit about your strategy for making sure you keep that authenticity and integrity without getting in the mud. Juliana?
I do believe that the climate that we are in now, you are going to get to a place, because think about what an election is, especially if you're running against an incumbent. You are trying to tell the voters that the person who is in office should be fired and that you should be hired. That's what it really is. And you have to be able to say, this is why I should be hired. And you talk about all the great things you're going to do and the way you're going to solve problems. But you also have to say, and here's why this other person needs to be fired. And so you're going to see some of that. I have experienced it. And I think depending on the office level, as you continue to go in different levels of office, you're going to see that happen, especially as was mentioned with the Citizens United case and all the money that is being put into campaigns. People are going to do that. One of the things that I think is important for people to understand is if you're thinking of running for office, is what's called opposition research. So opposition research is when you are going to do the research on your opponent and find out all the things that they probably don't want to come out. And you pay researchers to actually do that. But here's what's also important. You need to know about yourself. You need to know about taxes, credit. You need to know about, what happened in certain jobs where maybe there was a separation that didn't go so well. Maybe there's some posts you've had on social media. If you know all of that you can about yourself, almost doing your own opposition research, then what you can do is you can come up with the messaging or the communication strategy to address whatever those things might be. So do not be afraid of the fact that it might go there. Understand that if you stay focused, do the work, make sure you get out there and meet with people and tell why you would be a great candidate and why you deserve the job, it's going to have an impact. But do not get into that place. And I know that there are a lot of people who say, I don't want to get in politics, gets too dirty. But if everybody does that, we're not going to have the kind of people that we need in office. So you can't be afraid of it. You just have to be prepared. What might they say about me? What am I going to say if they bring it up? And what do I need to know about my opponent? Those are the strategies, I think, to really deal with some of that opposition.
I think you've given some really great pieces of advice when it comes to that. Rochelle, did you want to add anything in?
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. You all can tell I have a personality. It's just like the judge. When I ran in 2011, of course, there were 3 white men and myself in the race because there had never been a woman or an African-American to run. It's nonpartisan, but the guy who was throwing the mud was the chair of the Republican Party in our county. And so when I won the election, but I did not have 50% plus 1 is what you need to have in the state of Georgia. And so we had to go into a runoff, and he put out a lie that I was trying to buy votes with hot dogs or something that was being passed out at the polling places. I didn't even have the hot dogs. They were granted to me from the Falcons football team. I never even touched a hot dog. But because he put that lie out there and it grabbed legs and ran, I lost. I was going into the runoff with over 1,200 votes. Then I lost by 88 votes, less than 100. But as the judges said, I did not give up because I knew that I had something to offer to the community. So being relentless, I went back in 2015, unseated the guy who cheated and won the election against 3 men at the same, it was 4 of us in the race and I won the race right out. So having that dirty stuff to come up with, as Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high. I didn't bring out all of his dirt. I just stayed, continued to work and run my race and not focus on him. I knew a whole lot about him with ATF coming to his house and all kinds of stuff because I worked for the CIA for 9 years. But I didn't even talk.
I would not want to run against you. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
No, military, the agency, federal law enforcement officer, but it's okay. I just did what I had to do. And again, God really prevailed because not only did I win that race in 2015 and 2019, no one even came to the table. So, and as the judges said, in our community, when I first moved here 26 years ago, the KKK was marching down the middle of the street. So it wasn't a predominantly Black community. It was 70% white. And even on the city council now, there's 7 council members, 5 are white and 2 Black, and I'm the Black mayor.
Terry, thank you, Rochelle. Terry, I just want to ask about this whole concept of social media. Is a social media presence necessary? Because right now, if you're not on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, do you even exist? Especially in the whole area of politics. Terry, I'll have you take that one.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Social media is the new normal for anybody running for election. If you don't have a presence on all platforms, then you're going to lose straight out of the gate. As much as people don't like social media, for people who are running for office, it has become the place to be. And not in the ways Donald Trump was. We don't have to tweet out everything that we say or want to do or what's going to happen tomorrow. It's really about creating the space and the place for your messaging. And it's a great place to do it because you can hit all levels, all socioeconomic backgrounds, all racial backgrounds. And if you do paid social media, especially on Facebook and other platforms, you can expand your influence. You can expand your audience exponentially. What I would offer is, even in our most recent local school board election, the majority of the work that was done was on social media. We had a few people that raised a lot of money that did, mailers, et cetera. But for a lot of people who really don't have the capacity or the ability to raise a lot of money, being able to get your message out on social media for them was a game changer.
Good information. Did anybody else want to add anything on that social media platform? Yes, Judge.
I wanted to add on to that. Social media is a double-edged sword for it's frowned upon, although lately it's becoming more and more popular, but you have to be very, very careful. I've never been on Facebook. I have 2 Facebook pages, but they were set up for 2 campaigns, my countywide in 2012 and 2010 statewide for Supreme Court. But I've never been on there personally. I had young lawyers that set it up. We didn't trust it back then. We put a fake birth date in, and I've never been out on it. I don't know the codes or anything. But it's helpful during a campaign. But you wouldn't want to come in a courtroom and find out that your opposing party is a friend on Facebook with the judge.
I agree with you.
You don't know who those people are that are out there on Facebook or Instagram or whatever they are. And so you can't, as a judge, you've got to maintain your level of integrity and be fair and have people that are in front of you where they don't feel like the other person has that advantage. And so it's just difficult to be out. Now, I know some judges that are out on Facebook, but most of my friends are not.
And Judge, it's very interesting that you say this because I have not seen members of the judiciary be active participants in social media. And when they are, almost without exception, they get into trouble.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what happens, Source Star. They get into trouble because you can say something and you're going to be criticized. Negative campaigning is a given. That's going to happen.
Also it belies sometimes, it triggers people to say that you are unfair or you're biased. And then you'll end up having to recuse yourself from a case. And so, it's different than other local, state, and federal elections where your opinions on things are solicited ahead of time. Those sorts who are interested in running for one of the judicial offices, you'll need to be very mindful that anything you say, any opinion that you express is going to be interpreted in light of what position that you're going to be going after. Would you agree with me, Judge?
You are speaking truth to power, Source Star. You are telling it just like it is because you need the social media to help financially, when you're trying to run for office and reach people. But as a judge, you've got to limit what it is that you're saying, because you don't want to have to recuse yourself. That's the reason why you want to be there, so you can hear those cases that are important to the community, and you don't get recused on a case. And when you're in a mostly white area like my county, it's changed in the 29 years that I've served on the bench. Now it's almost more like 50-50, or maybe not quite that much, but about 30% Black in the whole county. But it's still, or minority, I should say, not Black. But it really is a situation where you just have to be cautious. You cannot get out there like you have things you can promise people and talk about routine things that are going on in the community. You can look up and see something on the news, and the next thing you know, they're in your courtroom. So if you're out commenting about those things, then you'd have to recuse on that case.
And Lieutenant Governor, that's the complete opposite for those who are in the policy making area and those who are running for office, you know, on a statewide level or on a federal level. You have to be out there, and people are expecting you to weigh in on hot topics as they relate to their individual communities. How do you balance that, Lieutenant Governor?
Well, absolutely. I mean, social media is a wonderful tool. It's just one of many tools in the toolbox to get your message out and make sure that you express your accomplishments. What are you doing? I use social media quite a bit to really be an ambassador for the state, to show all of the great things that the state has to offer. I love the state of Illinois. I want to say something a little, it's related, but a little different. And that is, we're talking to people who, those of you who are interested in running for office, recognize that right now, what your social media footprint is going to be there.
Yes.
So if you're interested in running for office, you have to recognize your brand right as it is right now. So it might be 5 years from now, it might be 2 years from now, you step up to run for office and you have a long diatribe about something, or you post certain pictures, those are going to come back. And so you have to be very, I think the real balance is, you might have one on the on your professional, or you know, in the, whatever. I have a state account that's managed by someone from the team. You have what you do when you're running for office, but what you do personally. Just understand that the things that you put on social media now can and often will be used, as I talked about before, as part of the campaign. So if you're interested in running for office, think about that right now. What are the messages that I'm putting out there? How much am I saying? Less is always more. I'll just say it, put it like that.
Thank you very much for that great piece of advice. And it actually brings me to just, I'm going to ask each one of you in 30 seconds to give us one piece of advice for our soars and guests who are considering running for office. I like to call this my rapid fire. So if you don't mind, let's start with Rochelle. One piece of advice, Rochelle.
All right, she said one piece. One piece is be yourself. When people want you to come, they don't want you to be anyone else. They want you to be you. And all of your experiences have brought you to the point of who you are. Bring that to the table. Don't try to be a fake or be a phony or emulate someone else, but be who God made you. We all have different fingerprints. Even twins have different fingerprints. And so be who you are.
I got be yourself. Terry, your turn. Sorry, Terry, what's that one piece of advice?
So I think it's important to understand the rigor and the pace of the work, and it's going to always vary, but always be ready. Always be ready. Don't let your guard down, even if it feels like you're in a slow time. The rigor and the pace is going to be up and down, but always be ready so you can be prepared to charge your duties as according to whatever it is that you need to do.
Thank you so much. Be yourself and always be ready. Judge, what's yours?
Dream big. I want every SOAR out there to dream big. And if someone had told me as a young teen mom that one day I would serve on the Oakland Circuit bench, win 5 elections, have a chance to run statewide, I would not have believed them. And I had naysayers tell me that you had a child young, you probably can't get through college. I worked full-time, went to school full-time, bachelor's, master's, law degree. And if I could do it, you can do it, SOARs. So just go for it, dream big.
Okay, be yourself, always be ready, dream big. Lieutenant Governor, what you got?
I'm going to close out where I started, and that is we need you to say yes. If no one has asked you to run for office before, I'm asking you right now. We need your voices in the room. We see the issues that Black women and girls are facing. We see the issues that our communities are facing. And the only way that we're going to make sure that our interests are best represented is when people like you step up, run for office, and when women run, we win. You have a huge support network as we are demonstrating right now. We need you in those rooms. Say yes, run for that office. And we know that we can do a lot for our communities and we can do it together.
Be yourself, always be ready, dream big, and say yes. Those are our notes for the evening. And I'm going to bring back my mentor and friend and sister, our esteemed international president, Dr. Glenda Glover, to tell us if we've done okay in terms of putting together a winning strategy. Dr. Glover?
Oh, thank you, Star, and thank you to the panelists. This has been rich. This has been so inspirational. I know that you have gained some insight. I know our listening audience has just gained lots of insight. So Soros, we figured out step one. Look at an office that might interest you. That's what everybody's saying. And then do the research and let's go from there. So Soros, I've enjoyed this. I hope this has been helpful. Let's use our talent and our expertise to lead, to drive, and heal our nation.
Sorry, Glenda, sorry, Madam Supreme, thank you so very much. I'd like to say a specific thank you in absentia to Sora Nakima Williams, to Marsora Terry Caldwell Johnson, Rochelle Robinson, Judge Denise, and our Lieutenant Governor Juliana. Just thank you all. Thank you very much for just your candidness, your willingness to share with all of our sisters and guests this evening. As we wrap up this evening, I want to again thank all the presenters who did an amazing job. Am I right, Soros? I also want to, of course, thank our international president and CEO, Dr. Glenda Glover, who never ceases to help us all continue to provide service to all mankind and exemplify excellence through sustainable service. So we thank her also. To close out the evening, please allow me to say that it is clear that Black women candidates could be making gains and possibly history in 2022 across the ballot, up and down, with a record number expected to run next year for local, state, and federal offices. These are what all the reports signal, but tonight was inspirational and aspirational. Women lead in crisis. So now let's get them in the office. In order to reach equal representation in our lifetime, we need to build a community of women who are curious about the possibilities of public leadership. Curious about the possibilities of public leadership. Be inspired, Soars and friends and sister friends. We need you, and we want you at a seat at that table. On behalf of the leadership of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, I thank you for joining us, and I wish you a great evening. Good night, everyone.